Tonight, the occupation may be over, but the damage and destruction left in the wake of the Occupy movement's mass day of action are still shaking the country. Now, in cities all across America, yesterday, property was damaged, streets were blocked, commutes were interrupted, and hundreds were arrested, and dozens more were needlessly injured. Now, here in New York City, the birthplace of the Occupy movement, 2 months ago, nearly 300 people were taken into custody. At least 7 police officers were injured in the line of duty. And yet somehow, despite the day's disturbing amount of violence, liberals remain shockingly silent on the issue. That is, except for at least 2 familiar faces from the president's past. But they're hardly standing up against this left-wing lunacy. They're actually endorsing it. Now, in this video from educationactiongroup.org, there he is, the unrepentant terrorist, former University of Illinois Chicago professors. Bill Ayers, he burst into laughter at the thought of the demonstrations being orderly or lawful.
The mayor of Atlanta just extended the occupation permit for 3 more weeks. He said something along the lines of, people have a right to do civil disobedience as long as it's respectful, orderly, and he used this word, as long as it's lawful.
Now, meanwhile, the Anointed One's former Green Job czar, Van Jones, gleefully warns this is just the tip of the iceberg.
You're going to see an evolution now as you go from a protest, keep the protest, but now expand into politics. And if you thought there was an earthquake in 2010 when the Tea Party moved into politics, wait till this 99% movement moves over into politics. You haven't seen anything yet.
And joining us now with reaction is nationally syndicated radio talk show and TV show host Bill Cunningham and the host of the David Webb Show on Sirius XM Patriot. David Webb is here. Guys, good to see you. David, good to see you.
Sean.
Billy Cunningham, God bless you. You're watching this madness unfold. Barack Obama endorsed it. Nancy Pelosi endorsed it. Debbie Wasserman Schultz endorsed it. Democrats are still endorsing it. None of them are speaking out against the violence, the rape, the insanity, the anti-capitalist rhetoric, the anti-Semitic rhetoric. What's going on here?
Sean Hannity, there's a scene from Star Wars in which Luke's father says, "I am your father. I am your father." Months ago, Obama launched the reaction of the Tea Party with the Occupy movement in connection with his friends from Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, Ayers, Bernardine Dorn, Jeremiah Wright, and all over the country. The one percenters who represent some of the worst aspects of American culture, they're the ones out there making fools of themselves. But the media, because they're generally in allegiance with the views of the 1%, and you and I both agree that what they say makes some sense, but there's no bridge or nexus between what they're doing and any significant change. The people that change America work for a living and do not commit crime. These individuals largely do not work for a living, and they're committing crimes, including threatening to firebomb Macy's in New York City.
Molotov cocktails. This seems like the natural, almost logical manifestation of the president's class warfare rhetoric. Think about
class and race.
Okay, fair enough.
You've got to combine the two, because all this is about for him is the politics of distraction, keeping everybody in their place. Look, he's past governance. He never did a good job of that. Now he's past it. It's re-election strategy. You need a boogeyman for the left. Think of Alinsky's tactics. You've got to have an enemy. So the enemy has got to be the 1% or supposedly successful Americans. But Sean, the president finally spoke out. He spoke out through Jay Carney, who said the constitutional rights of the protesters had to be compromised for the sake and safety of health. What?
Well, yeah,
their rights were never compromised.
Never.
You can protest in America if you do it under the rule of law.
You don't own.
You can't occupy personal property. The president endorsed this. He hasn't run away from it. He made a nice little statement through Jay Carney to try and say that it was their safety and the public that he was concerned about. BS. The bottom line is this president is divisive. This president is using class and race warfare in his tactics, his politics, his ideology, and frankly, it's insulting to the people who are in the lower economic areas, lower economic part of America, if you will, that are being used by him instead of being uplifted.
The question, Bill Cunningham, I have for you is, to what extent is this a factor in this coming election? I mean, we're a year away.
Sean, Sean, could you imagine if Barack Hussein Obama had gone through the same media scrutiny that Herman Cain and Newt Gingrich have gone through the past several days and weeks? Can you imagine teams of reporters going to Wasilla, Alaska, as they did to Sarah Palin, if they went to Occidental College, if they went to Columbia, if they went to Harvard? Can you imagine the scrutiny of Obama's connection to Bill Ayers, who's a domestic terrorist? How come Herman Cain plays by different sets of rules than Obama? Can you tell me?
Well, I can only say that